go on mute for this session, and we will get started in a second. We'll just wait a couple more seconds. Great. Thank you everyone for joining us today for our webinar. I first would like to begin by acknowledging that I'm speaking to you from the lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here on the call today. My name's Sophie Sushon. I'm one of the digital transformation consultants here at the Digital Transformation Hub, a part of the Info Exchange group with Connecting Up. The Hub focuses on digital technology as an enabler to support service transformation, new ways of working, and assisting non-for-profits on their broader digital transformation journey. Before we begin, just a little bit of housekeeping. We're on Microsoft Teams today to make it as interactive as possible. So please turn your camera on and stay on mute during the presentation. If you have any technical issues, type it in the chat box and I can assist you. We really encourage questions, so please type them in the chat box and Anne and I will get to them by the end of the webinar. Please note this webinar is going to be recorded and a link to the recording, the slides and a survey will be sent to you as the webinar ends. Today I'm excited to welcome you to boost your Microsoft Teams presentation skills and introduce you to Anne, our presenter today.
Thank you, Sophie, and thank you everyone for joining me today. In today's webinar, we will learn how to schedule your Microsoft Teams webinar, incorporate polls into your webinar, how to use recording and sharing webinars content, activate live captions for accessibility, and finally navigate breakout rooms. So let's go with me to find out all these interesting features. In order to schedule your webinar, you need to click on the calendar icon on the left-hand menu as shown on the screen. You can select webinar from the drop-down in the top right corner, and you can create a customized registration form. Don't forget to add presenters in there. Once you have created the webinar, you send out the invitation. You can reopen the calendar invite and edit it, and you can add co-organizers. Who are those that gonna manage the event or the webinar with you? You can edit breakout rooms, captions, lobby options, recording, chat, and even presenters. Who are those that gonna be presenting in your webinars? By selecting edit and then choose meeting options as the image shown on screen right now. In order to use live captions in webinar, you can easily get it open up by choosing more options and choose turn on live captions options. By doing that, Teams will present real-time captions. There are some tips to make sure that captions are as accurate as possible. The first tip is you speak clearly, slowly, and directly into the mic. You should avoid locations with background noise, especially like in situation when we work from home a lot and there might be dog barking in the background or some noise, background noise. And the third tip is you should avoid having multiple people speak at the same time. So those are the tips to make sure that you can get a very accurate captions. The caption would display at the bottom of the screen, just as the image on the on the left, sorry. And it will also identify who's speaking. There's a slight lag time-wise when switching it on, so don't forget to start your webinar recording by selecting Start Recording as circled red in the image on the right, and then you can turn on live caption as well. There are multiple modes in Teams that you can choose when you present in a webinar. So I'll introduce to you the presenters modes in Teams. There are three main presenter modes which allow you to customize how you appear when presenting in Teams. These are Reporter, Standout, or Side by Side. With Reporter Presenter mode, it allows you to place content above your shoulder as a visual aid. With Standout mode, your image will float above the content on the slide deck. And with Side by Side, it will display your webcam feed next to the content that you're presenting. So in order to enable this presenter mode, when you share your content, select Reporter, Standout, or Side by Side mode on the content sharing tray. You can also customize your background image prior to starting the presentation by selecting Add Background button, also correct on the image on the right on the screen right now. In order to switch between different presenter modes, you can use the presenter toolbar to switch between different presenter modes during your presentation. So it's pretty convenient and straightforward. The next feature I would like to introduce to you that is very helpful in webinar is creating a poll. The best practice is to have a polls set up prior to deliver your webinar. With this in mind, we'll be focusing on creating the poll prior to the webinar today. The poll can be launched during the meeting or webinar so that attendees can view and answer the poll. When a poll is launched, it pops up as a notifications window on the meeting screen and also displays in the meeting chat window. In order to add a poll prior to the start of the meeting, choose Edit the meeting invite in your calendar, select Polls, choose Add, and then Save. Or you can select the plus icon to add a new poll, or select the type of poll, for example, multiple choice. You should enter the questions and options before you save it. Repeat this step for all poll questions. Once you have the question in the polls tab, you can drag and drop them to reorder them. You can see all the draft poll questions as an example on the screen right now. So how can we launch the poll? There are two ways you can launch the poll. The first way is before, during, and after the meeting. You can select Launch on the Polls tab for the poll you are wanting to answer to. The second way is you can select the polls icon in your meeting to open the polls pane and select Launch. Both works okay, and you can choose whichever way you find most suitable. Anyone inside or outside your organization who has been sent the meeting notification and is using Teams on the web can vote. Once the attendees submit their answer, you'll be able to see their responses immediately. Results can be viewed on the Polls tab or Polls pane in real time. Polls have been launched and are currently accepting responses will be marked as live in red and in the top left corner of the poll. As you can see, I have circled the live icon. Polls that are closed and are not currently accepting responses will be marked closed in dark gray in the top left corner of the poll. So you can see the status of the poll question, so it's easier to manage. The all-time favorite features that many users have been looking for in Teams is the breakout rooms. Note that only meeting organizers using desktop version of Teams can create and manage breakout rooms. In order to enable breakout rooms, you select Rooms and then Breakout Rooms. Then the breakout room screen displays window will appear on your screen. You can create the rooms and assign attendees automatically once you have selected the number of rooms to create, or alternatively, if you would like to manually create the breakout rooms, you can select the people for each room. We're going to look at the automatic assignment as a part of this webinar. In order to create breakout rooms automatically, you will select automatically, and then you click on Create Rooms button. You can automatically assign attendees to breakout rooms when they are created. Teams will just evenly distribute attendees to the rooms. If you want to move people around later in the meeting, it has to be done manually. So in rooms meeting, a timer can be set in the breakout rooms so that attendees are aware when the breakout room session will finish. Once the timer expires, the rooms close and attendees are returned to the main meeting screen. So breakout rooms can be easily set up like that and edit later if you would like to change who attends which rooms. Some final notes about recording and sharing webinars. Meetings recordings won't capture whiteboards, annotation, or shared notes in webinars. So when you view a meeting recording, you might want to save the whiteboard, annotation, and shared notes separately if you would like to send it to the participant later after the webinars. When you view a meeting recording, you will only see up to 4 people's video streams at once. Recording are available after the meeting. Once it's finished, the recording will be generated. If the recording is located on the chat tab of the meeting and webinar, normally with webinar, the organizer is the only one who can actually download and manage the recording. However, other co-organizer or presenter can also view the recording in the chats tab after the meetings or the webinars ends. All recording will have an expiry date, which is set by your administrator. You can extend this date by reconfiguring this as well. So talk to your IT administrator if you would like to change that expiry date. Only the meeting organizer can download the recording, so make sure you assign the right person as the organizer. So these are some important notes about recording and sharing the recording at the end of the webinars. So now I'll hand it back to Sophie for the Q&A session.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Anne. That was really great to hear how we can best use Microsoft Teams webinars to our advantage. Now we've got time for any questions that you may have, and feel free to either come off mute or pop them in the chat. What I will also do is pop in a link for our feedback form. So if you do leave before the end of the session, you can click on that and provide us some great feedback. I can see someone's popped their hand up. Samantha, if you wanted to come off mute and ask your question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, the start of actually starting the webinar was a bit fast. I was just wondering where exactly you get the registrations that have come through. Like, is there a consolidated list that you can export and how you see who's signed up to attend the webinar?
Yes, definitely. So once you created a webinar, you can go to the calendar tab in Teams, click on the webinars that you have created, and then it will store the list in there. And even when you create customized question in that registration form, it will be stored in there as well. It have an option for you to export as Excel lists as well. So make sure you test it out in Teams and then let us know your experience.
Thank you.
The next question, Hilda, I believe you've popped your hand up as well, if you want to come off mute and ask your question. if you're there, Hilda. Otherwise, I'll move to the next question. You can either pop it in the chat or come off mute in a tick. I'll ask Aaron's question then. So how do we have access to the recordings of the webinars if we are not the organizer? Can you access them?
After the webinar, normally the organizer would choose to either share it with the participants by sharing the direct link to that recording, or they decided to store it to a shared space that everyone can see. Normally, if it's a temporary recording, and you do not need to keep it for a long time, and you're happy with the expiry date of that recording, I'll just directly share the recording with other members of the teams directly with a direct link to the current recording. However, with webinars like today, we know that we want to maintain the recording for a long time, so all the participants can view it for quite a long period. Then we'll upload it to a shared space, a permanent platform, so you can access it whenever you like. Do you want to add anything, Sophie?
Sorry, so if you're sharing a recording, everyone you've shared it to can download it or just view it?
It also depends on how you want to share it as well. I can share it, I can give you the permission to download it and manage the recording if I configure it that way, or normally I just simply share to view.
Does that make sense, Aaron?
Yeah, but where do you share it? Where do you configure it for downloading if you're not the presenter?
Sorry, I missed the few last one.
So you said that you can configure it for downloading for people that you've shared it to. Where do you configure that option to download as opposed to just stream it?
Yeah, so normally when the webinar ends, the recording will float into the chat tabs.
Yeah.
In the chat tabs next to the video, you will find the 3 dots, which normally known as more options in Teams. Click on that 3 dots and then open that in a browser, and then with that options in there, you can choose to share, give view only permissions, or manage as an organizer of that video as well. If you let the other person access the video as another organizer, they can download that video.
Okay.
So in some, you need to be an organizer to configure that.
Yeah. We had something. Yeah, we had an issue recently, and the organizer, like, people could view it, but then when they try to download, it just had the option to upload it. There was no download option. It was strange.
So after this meeting, you can follow up by reply to our follow-up email with a screen capture of your issues, and then we'll help troubleshoot that as well.
Okay, and I presume the settings are different from a meeting and a webinar, or they're the same?
So I'll have my tech, and then I'll have let Sophie add anything. So meetings and webinars are same but different. So normally meetings are dedicated in the last Lunch and Learn, we did differentiate meetings and webinar. So for meeting is for daily meetings, it's for a smaller group of users, and everyone have sort of a same level of permission. But with webinar, the hierarchy is clearer. You have organizer, you have presenter, and you have attendees. So they are a bit different that way. And webinar is more dedicated to organize webinars or presentations like I'm doing right now, where there are a lot more attendees than presenter. And with meetings, whoever internal users all can have access to the recording and download it. However, when an external user joins the meeting of another users in another Office 365 tenant, normally they might not have the permission to download it, very depending on whoever configure that Office 365 tenant. However, yeah, if it's a meeting and it's happened internally, normally everyone has access to that recording. It's a bit trickier for external user. With webinar, as I mentioned, organizer have the have the highest level of permission. They can download, they can manage the recording. Presenter can view it, but still need organizer to grant them the permissions to be able to download it. And for attendees, it depends on the organizer to to choose which platform they would like to share the recordings to. I hope that makes sense. Do you want to add anything, Sophie?
I was just going to say, in summary, meetings, everyone gets the same permissions and same controls. Webinars, the organizer sets the controls and sets the parameters. So they can have full permissions, they can have very limited. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I presume also all the functions are the same as well, like breakout rooms.
The functionality
presentation.
is relatively the same. It's the controls
Polls.
you have as the organizer. Yeah. Great, thank you. And feel free, as we were saying, respond via email, and we can chat one-on-one further about how your tenant is set up, and how we can make sure it's working effectively for you. Great, thank you very much. I'll move on to Hilda's question now. It's a shame your mic keeps turning off, but can you ensure the audience remains mute during the webinar?
Yeah, so normally in the participant list, if you see at the bottom of the screen, there are a human icon. Let me go back a few slides to show you that. Let me find a screen. Hopefully that's on. So if you have it might not be on the screen, but if you have at the bottom of your screen, there should be a two human icon. If you click on that icon, you can see the list of participants that are joining the webinar. Right click on the three dots next to participants, and then you have the options to mute all, or you can find the mute all button in there and you can mute the participants. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
If you go one slide next, Dan.
Yeah.
You can also, down, yeah. And stop. You can also allow mic for attendees, yes and no. So you can.
So it can be pre-configured.
Exactly, but that means that, for example, how Aaron turned off his camera and asked his question, they won't be able to do that. They won't have the option to do that. So it's about considering how you want to deliver your webinar effectively for you. Great. Tanya, I'm sorry that you arrived late, but yes, there will be definitely a recording shared after this meeting, as well as that feedback form we've popped in the chat. So if you've got an opportunity to fill that in, that would be greatly appreciated. Great. If there's any other questions, please either come off mute as we've done, or pop them in the chat box. Otherwise, we may finish up for today. And as you're saying, if you've got any further questions, respond to the email. Please complete the feedback form. And we thank you so much for joining us today and look forward to seeing you in future webinars. Thank you.
Thank you.